Welcome to this explainer. Let's just dive right in, because today we're going to discover exactly how a starving, outcast boy managed to absolutely shatter the old rules of the steppe to forge the largest contiguous land empire in human history. Now, we all know the name Genghis Khan, right? And usually that name conjures up these intense images of relentless conquest and just absolute destruction. But today we're taking a different angle. We're going to unpack the sheer administrative and political genius that actually made all those conquests possible.
To really wrap our heads around his administrative genius, we first have to peel back the layers of myth and look at the brutal, incredibly high contrast reality of his early life. I mean, ask yourself, how does someone go from having literally nothing, no tribe, no wealth, absolutely zero security, to ruling an entire nation? Well, the answer lies in how he completely, fundamentally re-engineered the society around him, step by painful step. So, let's start at the beginning. Section 1, Birth of an Outcast. Born Temüjin around 1162, legend actually says he entered the world clutching a blood clot, which, was seen as a sign of a destined warrior. But his everyday reality? It was a rapid, terrifying descent into absolute desperation. When he was just a little kid, his father, who was a chieftain, was poisoned by rival Tatars. And shortly after that, his very own tribe abandoned Temüjin, his mother, and his siblings out on the harsh steppe. They were literally reduced to a hunter-gatherer lifestyle, eating roots and catching fish just to survive. The stress and tension were so extreme that Temüjin and his brother actually ambushed and killed their older half-brother, Bektir, over a petty dispute about hunting spoils. He was even captured later by rival tribesmen and had to pull off this daring, desperate escape. Basically, sheer willpower and a brutal, unflinching instinct for survival were his only safety nets in the world. Moving on to Section 2, Forging Alliances and Enemies. Because he was betrayed by his own clan, Temüjin learned incredibly early on that when bloodlines fail you, personal charisma and strategic alliances are pretty much your only currency. He realized that the old steppe rules of aristocratic entitlement were fundamentally broken. So, using a highly valuable sable cloak from his marriage to his wife Berte, he secured the patronage of Togrul, a really powerful Karaite Khan. And later, when Berte was kidnapped by the Merkit tribe, Temüjin didn't just roll over and accept defeat. No way. He leveraged his alliance with Togrul and his childhood blood brother Jamuka to raise a massive army and rescue her. He was also actively gathering these intensely loyal personal companions, known as Nokad, guys like Borchu, who helped him recover stolen horses back when Temüjin had absolutely nothing to offer in return. These men were just drawn to his charisma and his growing reputation for being a fair, generous leader. But this approach inevitably led to a bitter, open war with his own blood brother, Jamuka. You see, Temüjin was actively promoting commoners to high positions based purely on merit and loyalty, completely subverting all the established social norms of the steppe. Jamuka, on the other hand, dug his heels in and became the champion of the traditional aristocracy. This massive ideological and personal clash culminated in 1187 at the Battle of Dalan Baljut. And here's the crazy part. Jamuka actually handed Temüjin a massive defeat. He even boiled some of Temüjin's captive supporters alive, sending Temüjin into total obscurity for nearly a decade. Which brings us to Section 3, the Baljuna Covenant. Emerging from those dark years, Temüjin steadily began absorbing rival tribes again. But his rising success made his allies super paranoid. Out of nowhere, he was betrayed by his patron Togrul in a brutal surprise attack. Pinned down at the muddy waters of Baljona, with his forces scattered and wounded, he looked up to heaven and made this desperate, highly impassioned vow to a tiny, diverse group of followers who had lost absolutely everything but their loyalty to him. "I shall always share with you men the sweet and the bitter." This singular event is absolutely crucial. It proved that loyalty based on merit and mutual survival was vastly superior to the fragile, treacherous tribal loyalties of the past. The men standing with him in the mud at Baldiana represented 9 different tribes. They practiced completely different religions. There were Christians, Muslims, Buddhists. They weren't united by blood. They were united by their shared sacrifice and absolute dedication to Temüjin. This exact, diverse group literally became the administrative and ideological blueprint for his entire future empire. It's basically a proto-nation. Let's look at Section 4, the Kurultai of 1206. Utilizing that unbreakable core of loyalty, Temüjin mounted a stunning comeback. After relentlessly crushing the Karaite, the Naimans, and finally executing his old friend turned rival, Jamuka, he called a massive assembly. a Kurultai, in 1206 to solidify his total, undisputed supremacy. He was no longer just Temüjin the survivor. He was now the supreme, unrivaled sovereign of the steppe. Taking on the title Genghis Khan signaled a massive paradigm shift. He wasn't just another tribal chieftain anymore. Whether the title means fierce ruler or implies an oceanic, universal ruler, the core message to the world was crystal clear. His ambition and his authority had zero borders.
Finally, Section 5. Rebuilding Mongol society. Because as it turns out, just winning the war wasn't enough. To prevent the constant, endless cycle of steppe rebellions that had plagued every single ruler before him, he had to completely dismantle and rebuild society from the ground up. This is where his true genius as an architect really shines through. He took the old, fractured system, a system prone to betrayal and ruled by entitled aristocrats, and he replaced it with an integrated, well-oiled meritocracy. The highest tier was now his own golden family, and right beneath them were commanders who had earned their place through blood, sweat, and absolute loyalty, regardless of whether they were originally born as shepherds, carpenters, or blacksmiths. So how did he actually do it? By breaking up conquered tribes and mixing them into rigid, mathematical decimal units. He totally erased old tribal identities and forged an unstoppable military-industrial complex. Think of it like this. If you were a defeated warrior, you were immediately separated from your clan and placed into a brand new squad of 10 men called an arban. You lived together, you fought together, and you relied entirely on each other. These units nested into hundreds and then thousands. And because the units of 1,000, the menkon, also included the households that supported the warriors, it functioned as both a political and a social unit. You couldn't rebel even if you wanted to. Your old tribe was scattered to the wind, completely replaced by a unified national identity. 10,000. That is the exact number of men he assigned to his personal bodyguard, the Kashik. But here's the truly brilliant part. He ingeniously expanded this guard by using the sons and brothers of his own military commanders as both hostages and elite students in a mobile military academy. It's a 2-for-1 deal. It kept his generals perfectly in line, because Genghis essentially had their kids, while simultaneously training the absolute best next generation of meritocratic leaders who had direct, privileged access to the Khan himself. Yet there was one final threat remaining from within. To ensure absolutely no one could challenge his authority, he had to deal with the powerful shaman, Koketcho. Now, Koketcho was immensely popular and actually began trying to divide the imperial family, even publicly humiliating Genghis's own brothers. Recognizing the massive political danger this posed, Genghis permitted the execution of the meddlesome shaman. Actually, scratch that, it was more like a spiritual coup. In letting him be killed, he effectively made himself the highest spiritual voice in the empire. No tribal lord, and now no religious figure, could stand above him. The whole shebang was under his control. So, as we wrap up this explainer, we really have to ask ourselves, how much of our modern world's foundations were secretly laid by this outcast's brutal, yet undeniably brilliant quest for order? By shattering the tribal aristocracy and building a society where capability always trumped lineage, he created an empire that didn't just conquer Eurasia. It literally connected it. It's such a fascinating look at the raw mechanics of power. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer today, and I really hope it leaves you curious to explore just how deeply these historical shockwaves still impact us today. What do you think his greatest legacy is?